We are going to, let's see here. We are going to start with the Department of Toxic Substances Control this morning and the independent review panel. I understand the Pro Tem is coming to join us. All right, welcome. You are, identify yourself, Mr. Krakow, welcome, and tell us about the panel and their work.
Thank you, Chair Wolk. Should I wait for the Pro Tem or okay?
He said to keep going, but he's on his way.
Thank you, Chair Wolk. Senator Nielsen, Senator Pavley. My name is Gideon Krakow. I'm the chair of the Department of Toxic Substances Control Independent Review Panel. I'm the Senate Rules Committee's appointee to the community representative seat. I'm an environmental lawyer from Los Angeles, former chair of the State Bar Environmental Law Section, and also privileged to currently chair the State Mining and Geology Board, serving as one of Governor Brown's appointees. It's a pleasure to be here this morning to briefly discuss, first, what the DTSC Independent Review Panel, or IRP, is. Second, our activities to date. And third, some of our initial observations about the Department of Toxic Substances Control. To begin, in June 2015, Senate Bill 83 established the Independent Review Panel within DTSC. The panel is comprised of 3 volunteers tasked with conducting independent review and making recommendations regarding improvements to DTSC's permitting, enforcement, public outreach, fiscal management, and other programs. In addition to me, the other panel members include an appointee of the Assembly Speaker with scientific experience, Dr. Arazu Campbell. She's a PhD toxicologist at Western University of Health Sciences, and an appointee of Governor Brown with local government management experience, Vice Chair Mike Vizier. Mike is the former chief of the County of San Diego's hazardous waste program. Our statute requires the panel to report to the governor and the legislature every 90 days until we sunset January 1st, 2018. So about 20 more months of work and at least 6 more reports. I wish I could bill hours for all the time that I'm spending on this.
No.
So, since we got started last November, the panel has held at least 1 meeting a month, usually webcast throughout the state, in full compliance with the Bagley-Keene law and staffed by counsel from the Attorney General's office. Earlier this month, we spent 2 days in the Central Valley, touring the Chem Waste Kettleman Hills hazardous waste landfill, one of 2 in our state, and then holding a nearly 10-hour meeting in Bakersfield to take public comment. We've received detailed presentations on the Exide Technologies closure plan and residential cleanup, and applaud the recent $176.6 million appropriation crafted by the governor, the Senate, and Assembly to fund those cleanup efforts, which certainly will be key to the panel's ongoing review. At our upcoming May meeting, for example, we plan to study how the state and DTSC can better use blood testing data to address lead contamination in California communities. The panel's adopted a work plan. It devotes 2 or 3 months to intensive study of each of 6 topics: permitting, enforcement, public outreach, fiscal management, site cleanup, and source reduction. Following up on this work, and during all of next year, Senators, the work plan calls for the panel to use each of the recommendations and performance metrics from our prior reports to publicly evaluate DTSC's performance. Our work is that of a monitor, one appointed by the governor and you, the legislature. The panel's initial report, which included preliminary recommendations, was submitted January 28. The second report was submitted today, and here it is. I think you have a copy. It focuses on the permitting program at DTSC. It includes a discussion of the program, as well as numerous legislative recommendations, reforms, and performance metrics directed to DTSC, and contains certain information requests for the department to answer. We hope that you, your colleagues in the Senate, and respective staffs will review these reports and adopt the recommendations, some of which are identified in your staff report today. So yes, the panel is relatively new, and we're just getting started. But we've been asked to share today some initial observations from our independent review vantage point. First, the permitting backlog. The DTSC permits only 119 facilities. However, lengthy delays in permit decisions have resulted in a backlog of pending permit applications. Why? Look at DTSC's authorizing statute, Senators. This is 2 columns, double-sided, maybe 8-size font. And this is just the statutes. It's not even the regulations. The statutes, in all fairness, are in need of significant updating and simplification. Now, I'm not sure that I want to be the one responsible for that job, but the fact is that up to 30 permits currently are identified as backlogged, that is, on continued status, more than 5 years past expiration. As a result, the panel supports the governor's budget proposal to fund 8 new permanent permitting positions. Also on April 8th, the administration submitted a spring finance letter requesting 15 additional permitting positions. The department recognizes this as a top priority. It has to break the backlog. Financial assurances also need attention. DTSC's permitting division also has to ensure that it secures adequate bonds and other financial assurances from permittees to cover the costs of closing the facilities. According to DTSC, there are more than 30 cost estimates over 5 years old that may be underfunded, Senators. In addition, the law does not currently require permittees to give DTSC financial assurances for all aspects of closure. Let me explain. Funds are required for decommissioning of equipment and post-closure monitoring, but not for actual cleanup of environmental contamination caused by the facility. And I know how important financial assurances are for my service on the mining board. We want to emphasize this, Senators. We know from Exide that without adequate assurance to clean up contamination at the sites from the permittees, the state and its general fund can be left holding the bag. The panel has therefore recommended a couple of things. First, DTSC should update its cost estimates for closure. Second, DTSC should require, as part of its permit issuance, that applicants set aside financial assurances, not only for equipment decommissioning, not only for post-closure monitoring, but also to actually clean up the sites and our communities, to assure adequate assets. The Legislative Analyst's Office made this same recommendation back in 2006. Another key topic is transparency. The DTSC has no governing board. Other than legislative hearings like this, stakeholders do not have a window into how decisions are made at the department. Your staff also raises this point. Many feel the panel has already played a critical role in shedding light on the department's decision-making simply by having agendized public hearings and taking comment. For example, members of the public have expressed concerns that hazardous waste facilities are too often situated in environmental justice communities, not provided with information on permit applications early enough to meaningfully participate. Pro Tem De Leon and his staff have emphasized this. And the regulated community has expressed concerns about the timeliness of DTSC's decision-making, its communication, and a lack of clear regulatory standards when it comes to permitting tasks. After hearing all this, the panel has recommended that the DTSC prioritize more frequent communication with key stakeholders and provide technical assistance grants to encourage early public participation at the most thorny sites, and to require DTSC to respond with defined time periods to permit submittals and establish accountability mechanisms such as deemed approval of submitted information or permit denial when the deadlines are not met. Transparent, timely decisions. Finally, buy-in to the panel's role. The department and Director Lee have been helpful in getting the nuts and bolts of the panel going. We want to thank them for that. Hiring our 2 intrepid panel staff, including our analyst, Larry Rolfus, who's here today, our offices, phones, helping pay our lawyer, the website, responding to requests for presentations and numeric metrics to measure DTSC's work. We couldn't do these basic tasks without the support of DTSC and its resources, which we know are limited. But that basic support, Senators, is not going to change this department. For the panel and DTSC to be successful, the department and all its staff, including the director, executive leadership in Sacramento, many who are sitting behind me, and the branch offices throughout California, must fully engage with the panel and work together with us over the next 20 months to craft meaningful recommendations for reform. And we need buy-in from DTSC to ensure that those recommendations will actually be implemented. We cannot just focus on the quantity of the decisions each year involving permitting, financial assurances, or transparency. We must focus on the quality of those decisions, the quality. And how can we do that without the department? Thank you so much for this opportunity. The legislature has a critical role in championing the panel, championing its recommendations. You are one of the key stakeholders to ensure that all of our hard work can meet your expectations and the expectations of the communities that the department serves. We look forward to appearing before you regularly throughout the next 20 months to report on DTSC's performance, and I want to thank you again. This is excellent timing.
Yes.
Good timing, Mr. Pro Tem.
Thank you very much, Madam
to the
Chair. Madam Chair, Senator Pavley, as well as Senator Nielsen. I just want to share a few words. I know Gideon Craco is my constituent. In fact, we're neighbors, not too far from each other, in the same neighborhood in Los Angeles, Mount Washington, and I have a complete trust. As you all know very well, he is our selected appointee for the Oversight Committee of DTSC, and I just want to be here to lend a few words of support and also publicly before this committee, Madam Chair, and to all of the constituents of California, but especially in Los Angeles. Just thank you publicly for your volunteer hours, very long hours, very fine work, whatever recommendations that you provide this subcommittee and therefore the Budget Committee as a whole and to the leadership of the Senate are welcomed and will be reviewed taken very seriously. So I just want to thank you very much for your hard work and just want to share that, Madam Chair.
I want to thank the Pro Tem for coming, and I want to thank you for all the work that you have done and all the work that you are yet to accomplish. We're going to be discussing the areas that you mentioned shortly with the director, certainly permitting the issue of outreach, the backlog, and then the issue that you raised at the end about a different structure, an additional structure, a board that ought to perhaps have more jurisdiction over some of these permitting issues. So thank you for all of that. I welcome your participation, and if you'd like to stay through that and offer your 2 cents as we go along. And we have some questions from members as well. Senator Pavley.
Yes, well, thank you very much, Gideon.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem, for coming.
Mr. Pro Tem, Mr. Craco suggested if this was for billable hours, we probably couldn't afford this. But anyway, the model is excellent because we have a lot of agencies that don't have the public participation and the hearings and the stakeholder, so there's very little transparency. And Gideon knows very well from mining reforms, it's sort of similar in financial assurances for bonds for cleanup after the fact. Of course, that should be required on the state level and everywhere we can, but how do we convey that to local governments who are responsible for approving these sites? Obviously, locations are of a concern to many of us because they're lots of times next to homes and schools. So I'm trying to figure out, as we do a better and better job on oversight on the state level, how do our colleagues on the local government level make sure through conditional use permits or whatever else, or are we the only people that can require those financial assurance? Until the governor signed the mining reform bill just this week, we had mines and quarries all over the state with no one there to make sure they were cleaned up. So land couldn't be used again, and the potential for contamination of mercury and on and on. And so great job in instituting this panel. It's a great model for some other agencies that perhaps need a little reform or updating or support for additional personnel to get the job done. So I wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, Senator Pavley, it's a very good question that you pose, and I know that there's been a lot of with the controversy of the worst methane gas leak in the history of the United States with regards to the permitting process. What's it look like, and what are the consequences or unintended consequences of these types of developments, whether they're housing, residential, developments, or battery recycling plants, or chrome plating facilities, whatever the type of business is, not just in Southern California, but throughout the state. As you all know very well, what we have attempted to do here in the Senate is, as the indirect representatives of the direct representatives of our constituents, but vis-a-vis the executive branch representing our constituents, irrespective of their political affiliation, their political persuasion, is to try to bring direct representative democracy. How? By, in this case, creating a new type of model, which is an oversight committee promoted or led by the Senate of Citizens, who have either expertise or impacted in some form, way, or shape by the decision-making, either at the executive state agency level or at the local level, local city councils, local county board of supervisors. CARB is another example where we appointed two environmental justice appointees who I believe have brought value in a different perspective to CARB. We have a proposal that's before us. Little controversial, no question about it, with regards to South Coast AQMB, that oversees and regulates the air quality to a 4-county region that has over 18 million folks. We are looking to expand and provide more voices that are reflective of the incredible diversity of Southern California. But this is a vexing issue at the local level, because I don't believe, and I may be wrong, and there may be other folks in the audience who may point to examples throughout the state in terms of local government where they have a really thorough, involved, process of getting feedback and oversight, and not just issuing conditional permits to develop, and this is not being anti-development by no stretch of imagination. It's just being safe and making sure we have a balance in terms of economic growth and being responsible with clean environments for our constituents, whether they live in the west side of LA or the east side of LA, Northern Cal, Southern Cal.
I was really trying to focus in on the financial assurances for cleanup, because whether it's Exide or Halico in Oxnard, which was a smelting kind of facility, many times they just declare bankruptcy. So
and they leave
the
town.
facility is leaking out, and it's a problem. Yes, it's on the Superfund site. It'll never be cleaned up, perhaps in the foreseeable future. And there's probably those stories all over the state. So we have a problem with the backlog and the cleanup that we never required the financial assurances. So that should be perhaps the first step.
No doubt about it. Part of the economic growth, part of the phenomena of the economic growth of Southern California was the aerospace industry that really provided good quality jobs to Southern Californians. We've seen the demise of that industry, but we see it also now picking up again in Southern California. But part of the legacy also too is the contaminated aquifers, and the groundwater. Now that we are in a 5th historic record year of a drought, we're investing more dollars to clean up those aquifers so we can have below ground storage of water in the near future. But fiscally, someone has to pay that bill. And that's the legacy. So when you don't have agencies, whether it's state, local, or federal, working in concert with each other, it's a siloed approach to government and no accountability, and companies leaving town by the end of sundown, and the community and taxpayers of California are left holding the bag, then someone has to be held accountable, no question about it. So you pose some very bigger, deeper, profound questions that's very comprehensive, and not just about one side of the argument, we must do this for economic growth, but we can still do this for economic growth. At the same time, we can live in a cleaner and safer environment, and someone ultimately has to be fiscally responsible for any emissions of harmful toxins or pollutants that impact communities, that impact the lives, the health of our children.
It's an ongoing story, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Pavley, Madam Chair.
The San Fernando Valley, it was contaminated by World War II defense industries. It's going to cost $900 million to clean it up. But Senator Woke, when it's cleaned up, it could supply 1/4 of the city of Los Angeles's water, which means it doesn't come from where. So,
Good.
but we have these stories everywhere. Santa Susana Field Lab, who's the responsible parties. It goes on in everyone's zip code.
That's why, as policymakers, both Democrats and Republicans, state agencies, the executive branch, local government officials, we really have to work in concert with each other, along with the private sector, to make sure we have a nice balance of both economic growth and allowing folks to maintain a living wage so they can provide for their families, at the same time, breathe clean air and drink clean water that's safe for all communities.
Well, the long-term health impacts. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. Thank you for joining us.
And just if I can add a sentence
Yes.
on that point,
Okay.
and certainly we can't add too much to what the pro tem had said, but we as Californians have to learn lessons from what we see and what is happening, and with Exide, some of these other facilities that you're mentioning. And so I would suggest that you as policymakers, these are exactly the right questions to be asking right now. And it really is a question of priorities. This department has a ton of things to do. But if we are seeing that this question of making sure that there are assurances at the facilities that they regulate, at these smaller facilities that the Koopas regulate, we have to prioritize that and give this department the direction and the resources to say, hey, let's get these assurances in order up and down the state. So these are very important questions to be asking right now.
May I ask one follow-up?
One more question,
And then
Senator
I'll be
Pavley? Sure.
quiet for a while, sorry. It's just so topical. I don't know if you want to answer this, but are you looking at, besides the backlogs for lack of personnel and things like that, either being able to attract just some amazing quality people who will be able to perform and do this work? I mean, you're volunteering your time on the independent panel. Not everyone will be able to do that. But is there any history that you've uncovered of sort of political interference, either by the private sector, who doesn't want the responsibility to clean it up, or past and current administrations? I mean, or the legislature? I mean, maybe there's other reasons that we're not aware of that we want to make sure by perhaps that independent panel, our board that we're looking at, can create that transparency so that decisions aren't made out of the public process that either delay cleanup.
We have not made any, firm recommendations on those points, and I don't want to get ahead of my other panelists who, to some extent, I'm speaking on behalf of today. Maybe just a couple observations. The first is, this department has gone through a series of many directors, and any organization that has that kind of turnover, it's not going to be healthy. So the panel wants to support this director, both internally and externally, with her priorities, and we need the cooperation and teamwork to do that. The other thing I will note, as I mentioned, we have two staffers for our panel. Well, the department just hired one of them away to a permanent position, which is a little bit of a setback for us, but we wish that person well. But at least to me, that sort of indicated that that person felt that the morale was good enough at the department, that it was a department that he wanted to join. So that was a good point. We are going to look into the department. We hope to go and learn from the staff in the branch offices. We haven't had an opportunity to do that. We think it's essential to learn about what's going on and to be able to implement things that the staff actually can buy into and implement. Along the way, Senator Pavley, if we see some of those types of things you're talking about, if we think that there are structural issues at this department, we will come back and report to you on those.
Thank you for your good work.
I thought I don't want to spend a lot more time in this. We want to get into the department. I want to thank you for what you did. One of the things that I recall from being in local government, both city and county in the 1990s, when there were a number of these very large sites, large and small, toxic sites that were discovered, bankruptcies had occurred, owners were gone, it became a legal morass as well as just an environmental disaster. The standards that we had in place in the 70s and 80s, both by the military and by the state, were very different. And for agriculture, same thing. How we dealt with these toxic substances was very different. First, our sense of what was dangerous or not was very different, and how we dispose of them was very different. So you could have just these substances that we've since discovered to be so dreadful just poured on the ground. And there they were, whether it was the military, whether it was the state, whether it was a business, whether it was agriculture. And our view of all of that, these substances are still there, and our view of it has changed. But we don't have any fiscal assurances from anyone that we can go back to and find. So it's really an incredibly expensive effort throughout the state. So I just think it's an incredibly difficult problem. It is a health hazard. It is, I liked what you said about the fact that we have to work as a team. It requires the local governments as well as the state as to be able to deal with the many facets of and the numbers of sites that we have. So I want to thank you for wading into this. It's not going to be easy, but we have to start, and I want to thank you for that. So let's call Barbara Lee up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And let's start with the department. Let's go into some of these issues. Oh, yes, all right. We're starting on page 8, but for that, I need a quorum. Let's establish a quorum.
Senator Wolk?
Here?
Senator Pavley?
Here?
Senator Nielsen?
All right, we have a quorum. I'm going to do the vote-only calendar first, and then we'll go into the specific issues that we have been talking about. We have a vote-only calendar on page 8. We have cost recovery, AB 276 funding, Attorney General independent review and panel costs, biomonitoring costs, proposals, treated wood waste, the Argonaut Mine Dam retrofit, and the replacement of lab equipment. All right, we will take 1, 4, 5, and 6. May I have a motion?
So move.
All right, do we need public comment on this? All right, 1, 4, 5, and 6 have been moved. Please call the roll.
Senators Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? Aye. Senator Pavley?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Those items are approved. Items 2 and 3, I need a motion.
So move.
It's been moved. Item 2 and 3, please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? No. Senator Pavley?
Aye.
All right, they are approved 2 to 1.